This is the most tankiest and fastest mapper I have ever played. Hey, I'm Cyclon, and today I want to share my variant of the Toxic and Caustic Arrow build. In my case, my Ascendency of choice is the Raider. This build has been the fastest build I've played, having over 200 movement speed. It's even faster than just a Deadeye with Tailwind and Onslaught boots and Elusive on the boots. This build is very, very quick, and it also has very high single target damage, has a decent bossing damage, assuming the boss stands still for a moment. It has very amazing clear, crazy survivability for the amount of speed and zooming factor this build has. The only thing it doesn't have the highest budget. But this is just a rough overview. Let's take a bit closer and explain why specific things are this way. So the single target of this build relies on the enemy taking a few hits from the pots. So the single target and bossing damage isn't perfect. Once you have the investment into this build, it is definitely there. It can kill the Sanctum boss, it can kill 60% Omniphobia, 60% Cosis. I haven't tried higher percentage. I haven't tried any big bosses this league yet because I didn't have the need to. However, I am very, very confident that even a Cyrus, Maven, it can kill those if necessary. However, this build is not intended to kill bosses. It's intended to be a mapper. It's intended to be a very fast mapper and surviving the very fast and very juiced maps. So it can run pretty much all mods as well. So that's much as for the rating for single target and bossing. The clear is absurd. Now it isn't an explosion chaining build. It can compete with builds like that, but it is very, very good at it. I think it can compete with Tornado Shot or Omniscience Tornado Shot rather as a good invested build. The way it clears is you're not off screening, but you're very, very quick, and a single attack of your Caustic Arrow will cover the whole screen. So you just walk, use your Caustic Arrow once, the screen is covered, you walk to the next pack, use your Caustic Arrow, the screen is covered, and the good thing is it's a dot build. Now, in some cases this is a bad thing, but with this crazy build, this is a good thing, because you just leave Caustic Arrow, walk to the pack, clear there, and once you're done with the juiced map, you can just go back and looting afterwards, and everything that where you fight your Caustic Arrow will be dead. Now, of course, stuff like a Harbinger is going to take like maybe 3 or 4 Caustic Arrows, and maybe some Toxic Rain pods, but it's definitely is a very, very quick clearing build. And I'm very, very confident that this is on the same stage as Tornado Shot Omniscience with a decent level of investment. And there we get to the survivability. I am more than happily surprised with the survivability of this build. I've never played a build that has 200 or more movement speed and has no issues surviving juiced maps. Now, the Magic Find version I've played, it did die quite a bit, but once I swapped back to the movement speed version with Queen of the Forest, I am about to hit level 98, and I'm very confident I can hit level 100. And the only reason I'm not level 98 yet was because I was staying AFK in the map, checking the item, and didn't watch that an enemy was approaching me and killing me while I was basically AFK, as I wasn't really watching the screen. But this build doesn't die while mapping, or very, very hardly dies while mapping. It's not perfect, it's not invincible, but its survivability is definitely up there. The only bad thing, as I already said, is the budget. It is a dot build. It has a lot of demand on specific things that aren't the easiest to get, so those do have the price tag on them. But here's the good thing. It starts out cheap, and you can definitely very easily farm low investment strategies with an early budget version, and that's going to get you all the currency needed to get all the investment for this build. I have ended group play with like 10 divines, and this build is now invested 50 divines. It made me more than 50 divines. I'm ignoring the mage blood in this case. This build's just been crazily good, and it definitely can make all the currency needed to use for this build to get it through all the stages. At the current stage, I am basically done with this build. I think it's about 50 divines invested into it, and it can run juiced 60% delirium map. I put like a 100 quantity map in. It had reduced armor, it had increased damage for the enemies, it had more life, just crazy stats on the enemies. And I had no issues killing stuff, and I had no issues getting staying alive in the map. Just so this good is this build basically. We are going to scale our defenses in several ways. We're going to get access to 100% spell suppression with a combination of Mage Bane, our Ascendency, and a few nodes on the tree. We're going to get access with Elemental Avoidance by using the 6 skin wheel for 20%, the 3 leak steps that gives us 30% while we are affected by pacing, which by the way we are affected by all the time through our Ascendency, and then utilizing the Ascendency again to get another 50%. So now we are at a 100% avoidance. We can use a grace and then combining it with the 100% increased evasion from the boots, as well as the Queen of the Forest and the Mastery to have a 100% increased evasion rating from armor. And now an evasion flask, we are very easily capping at 55k evasion without a mage blood. And once you have a mage blood, which makes this build just that much more crazy. So it is definitely not needed. I've played it with a few maps with it. I played a few maps with the Biscuit's Leash, and it doesn't really matter. You have with both variants, you have a lot of movement speed. The mage blood just makes it a tiny bit more tanky as you get up to 70k evasion. Instead of only 70k armor, you get like 30, 40k armor, which isn't, I mean, it's an improvement, it's better. But 70k armor is already more than enough for most content in the game. And on top of all the defensive layers, it even has life regain. We have life recovery on kill, we have flat life on kill, we have we can get a corrupt in our boots for getting life while moving, and we could get life on hit on the tree or getting a quiver to get life gain on hit. It's just giving a lot of life regain. I've had no issue staying alive even in crazy situations with this build. And on top of all that, we are crazily fast. For example, the dude's map boss is jumping at you while he's in air. You can already walk past him 2 screens away. It's just crazily good to get to stay alive with this build. I'm just more than happy with how it turned out. And then we get to the offensive scaling. Now the way we do damage, we're going to take a look at the passive tree in a moment. It takes a few steps to get all the single target damage out, so a high moving boss isn't the easiest to do the damage with, but the moment the boss stops for like a second or two, he's going to die. You fire a caustic arrow, you place your totems down, you curse the boss if it isn't cursed yet, you're going to fire the caustic arrow again in case he moved, and then you're going to hold on frenzy, generate frenzy charges, and all the toxic rain totems are going to fire a crazy amount of toxic rains on the boss. The pot's going to explode. Wizard's getting applied, so the boss is now cursed. Wizard standing on caustic ground and then getting all the pots in its face, and it's just going to plop down. We have about 2 to 3 million damage with a normal caustic arrow, like damage per second. Then our toxic rain are going to do 3 toxic rain totems are going to do about 1 million damage. And then when we have a Volcaustic arrow up, we're adding another 5 million. So that is about between maybe 6 million with the Toxic Rain, because it does it stacks up and it lasts about 2 to 3 seconds. So that means you could get a million damage from the first attack, from the first pot sitting. Then you get the second attack that adds another 3 million. And then the third attack means 9 million damage with Toxic Rain. 2 to 5 million damage from Caustic Arrow. This definitely has a ton of damage. It just needs a moment to apply it compared to an elemental on hit build or physical on hit build. But yeah, that gets us to our Pantheon and Bandit choices. Now we're finally getting into the interesting part of the build. We are going to want Zul of Lunaris and taking all the vessels just to get additional survivability, additional physical damage reduction, and then getting Soul of Avarice to get rid of that pesky burning ground, as well as getting the ignite duration on us. So the ignite duration, it doesn't really matter as we are already avoidance capped. And then we want to kill our bandits. We are a damage over time build, and we are going to use Eldritch Battery, so we don't need the mana regen, we don't need the crit multi, we don't need the resistance. We have enough rare gear to get the resistance on. So we take the passive points, which are crazy valuable for a damage over time build. And that basically is that. Which puts us to the Ascendency. Now, the Ascendency choices are as the following. First, we want to get Onslaught, and then we want to get the increased Onslaught effect, so that we have a very fast campaign. We are then going to take Spell Suppression, which is going to be towards the end of the campaign. In combining it with the tree, we are going to be very quickly Spell Suppression capped. And we're going to finish out our Ascendency with the Avoidance. We don't really... I mean, there are two things the Ascendency gives. It's Elemental Penetration, which we don't care about because we are dealing chaos damage over time, native dot, and we're getting the elemental avoidance, which we care a lot about because we are very easily with just the boots, 4 passive points on the tree, and then the Ascendency, we are avoidance capped, very correct, very easy avoidance cap, and that much is that. If you're running the Magic Find version, you can replace this Avatar of the Veil with a Frenzy Charge node, which is going to allow you to get an additional Frenzy Charge and have easy Frenzy Charge generation. However, we can just use the Blood Rage and Frenzy to have generation of Frenzy Charges at any point of the game. So this is not really needed, it's just a better pick for the Magic Find variant. Just wanted to put that out here. We are also going to use Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flash. We are going to want those in once we get our Cluster Jewel, and we are going to get Nature's Reprisal with those. Nature's Reprisal not only gives us AoE, which helps us covering more screen and making our Toxic Rain pods hit more often, like getting more often 4 instead of 3 hits on the enemy. It is also giving us a more damage over time multiplier, which we gladly take. The conversion on it doesn't really matter too much as we're not doing any physical scaling, but just those two things are worth quite a bit and definitely worth the 2 jewel sockets. And basically it's one of the, or well, the biggest reason why people win Pathfinder Toxic Rain Caustic Arrow in the first place. The rest of the tree is damage over time, all the damage over time from bow, like here, 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 chaos damage over time, or chaos damage over time and increased effective wizard, or generic damage over time. We just want all the damage over time. We also want skill effect duration. It not only lasts our caustic arrow lasts longer, our toxic rain is going to deal more damage overall with it, and we are going to have more uptime on our wizard, more uptime on our totems, more uptime on our blood rage in case we need that. It's just overall really good for us. We also want evasion on our build, as evasion directly translates to movement speed with the Queen of the Forest, and then we're going to take a good amount of health, like here's a node, here are nodes, and here are nodes, as well as here are nodes. We just take all the health we can get. We're getting about 4.5 to 5k health. And then we're going to get a bit of reservation efficiency, of course, so we can fit our auras. And then we're going to round up the tree with some movement speed over here, some additional movement speed with increased onslaught effectiveness, and then some masteries, for example, like getting increased effect of wizard, getting more damage over time multiplier when we killed recently, getting evasion rating as armor, and just making this a really well-rounded tree, as well as getting the cluster jewels, the 8 passive the 8 passive chaos damage with 3 notables that all have 30% increased chaos damage, making our build do even more damage. And now we get to the interesting part, the skill jump setup. This is surprisingly good for our Caustic Arrow. We're going to have our Caustic Arrow as our main damage source in the 6th link. We're going to link it with Arrow Nova, preferable Awakened, because Awakened gives us another projectile. And once we have 20 quality on the Caustic Arrow and 30 AoE from the Forbidden Flame and Flash Jewels, and 6 projectiles with the Awakened Arrow Nova, our Caustic Arrow is going to cover as a whole big ring around us, the whole screen, and it's just going to be amazing clear. We want Swift Affliction because we don't really care about the duration after 2 seconds on our Caustic Arrow, we rather just have it deal more damage. Void Manipulation is going to give us a level and a ton of damage to our Caustic Arrow. Vicious Projectile is giving us even more damage, and we don't really care about the attack speed on the Caustic Arrow as we are going to fire it only every few seconds. And even with Vicious Projectiles, we still have a crazy fast attack speed. And then we want an Awakened. Early on, a level 3 is enough, but very quickly want to upgrade to a level 4 in power, or Eventually, if we want to go all out on the build, we could even get a level 5 Awakening Power. However, that one isn't really needed. Just a level 4 and a level 21 Caustic Arrow with the Void Manipulation, with a +1 Amulet, and then with the proper bow is going to get us a level 30 Caustic Arrow, which is more than enough to destroy every content in the game. Except maybe Pinnacle Bosses, they are just going to be a bit more annoying. But anyway. We are also going to use Toxic Rain. We're going to use it on the totem and the Ballista totem to be exact, with focused Ballista support. It is actually pretty good. We can use focused Ballista on our Toxic Rain totem. Then it's going to be placed faster, be up quicker, and we can either spam more Caustic Arrow or Frenzy, and we're going to have a lot of attacks on Toxic Rain, and it's going to focus whatever we are focusing. So with this, we have a very good single target, and then adding Awakened Void Manipulation to get another level to Toxic Rain on top is just going to make it even better. And then we can add Withering Touch to get our 15 Withering stacks very, very quickly on any enemy, as well as an efficacy or efficiency support. And that rounds up our Toxic Rain. So we can get efficiency, we can get Withering Touch as anomalous, giving us more skill effect duration, so that means our Toxic Rain damage over time effect lasts long on the enemies. And so for the Toxic Rain itself, we could get a Phantasmal Toxic Rain, getting 2 additional projectiles, which don't directly help with single targets, so they're not a hard requirement, but they do help quite a bit with our clear. So when you have 5 arrows on Toxic Rain, you get about 3 to 4 pots hit on the enemy. If you have 7, you're still going to be 3 to 4 pots on average. However, if it's a bigger enemy, or if you're using it as helping with the clear on like maybe a legion, it's going to hit more enemies, so it's going to be better clear with getting additional projectiles there. Our auras of choice are going to be Malevolence, Grace, and Determination. If you do not have enough reservation efficiency to get Determination yet, you can use the Defiance banner, and you can use a mana flask until you have Eldritch Battery, and once you have the Eldritch Battery with the diadem, which we get to when we get to the items, we can very easily fit these 3 auras and have a very rounded survivability. And then we can use a Despair with the new Hexbloom support. It's really, really good. I am a very big fan of Hexbloom. Basically, it feels like having Contagion on the Despair. You place it on the enemies or just on a few enemies on the screen when you clear an Abyss, when you clear a Legion, when you clear a Breach, and it's going to spread through everything. Maybe you need to cast it a second time, but we have also a very good cast speed, so it barely takes any time to cast it, and Hexbloom just makes it spread, and it's just very, very good. Also, by the way, both Hexbloom as well as Despair, we can get Anomalous. Everything is in the POB, by the way. The POB includes all the gems, all the trees, all the items, but we're going to get to that at the end of the video again. As for our mobility, we want to have a Blink Arrow with faster attacks. It's going to feel almost instant with increased projectile speed. It's going to feel very smooth, but of course, if you're not a fan of Blink Arrow, you can always just use Dash with Second Wind or a Flame Dash, and you're good to go as well. And then we can have Molten Shell, preferable Anomalous, a normal Withering Step, and a normal Frenzy. Frenzy is going to be so that when we already have a Caustic Ground on the enemy, we can spam Frenzy instead to get Frenzy charges and get all our Toxic Rain to fire at the boss. Withering Step we are actually using just as an additional Withering apply in the map, but main focus of Withering Step is actually the movement speed. We do Caustic Arrow, we activate Withering Step, and we walk until we get the next pack or the next league mechanic we want to activate. And the Withering Step is just going to make the build a tiny bit amount faster by giving us the elusive effect. And then we have Molten Shell on left click to just have additional defensive layer for about half the time. As it's up, then while it's down, we can't really click it, so we still just move around with the left click and it's up again. And one last thing I haven't added on the view, but you can see I'm using a portal gem. You can, instead of portal, also use a blood rage if you want to have frenzy charges up all the time to get that additional attack speed, additional movement speed, but it isn't really needed. Just having the frenzy is more than enough for half of the league. I haven't used blood rage, I only started recently using it. It does feel nice, but it also decreases your survivability as you have a life drain applied to yourself. So you try it out, and if you like it, use it. If you don't like it, you don't need to use it. It's not necessary at all. And that gets us to the gear section. So very quickly, if you enjoy this kind of detailed build overview, build guide, please let me know. If you don't like it, please let me know as well, so I can improve it, maybe make it quicker, maybe make it a bit less detailed. Anyway, any form of feedback is highly appreciated. But yeah, with this, let's take a look at the items. We're going to start with the bow. We're going to want in the beginning just a +3 bow, and it can be on any base basically. A Sicket is the best, as we only really care about the attack speed, but any base in the beginning is fine. And then we upgrade it to a Hunter influenced Sicket bow or Marrakech bow if you want that additional movement speed. And those are actually very easy to craft. It just costs about 6 divines, or well, I think it's a bit less, a bit more. I think it's about 7 to 8 divines to make this bow. So very quickly, we're going to take a look here. We want to start with a bow. It actually doesn't have to be fractured. Just a rare bow with damage over time multiplier. And once we have that, it's a super quick, super deterministic way. We are going to mod it with can have up to 3 crafted mods, cannot roll attack mods. So now we have 3 suffixes. Now we can exalt slam it, and it will always be +1 to socketed gems. Then we Hunter Orb slam it, and will always be increased chaos damage over time. Now, chaos damage over time has 4 tiers. Most of the time you're going to get T3 or T4. I'm getting very lucky here right now. I had twice T1 now and 1 T2. If you get T1, T2, you're more than happy, you take those. But if you get T4 or T3, that's more than fine. It's just a really good additional damage source. Once we have those crafts, we're going to remove the crafted mods. And we're going to multi-mod again. And we're going to finish our on our bow with, where is it? Chaos damage over time multiplier as our last suffix. And for the prefixes, we're going to get the crafted +2 to socketed support gems, which is going to give us level 2 empower. It's going to give us level 2 our awakened gems. And with the +1 and the +2, we don't even need to corrupt our awakened gems, as every awakened gem is going to be level 8 eventually, giving us all the benefits. Level 9 and level 8, there is no difference as far as I know. But yeah, that is the bow very quickly. So you get just a rare bow with damage over time multiplier generic, multimod, cannot roll attacks, exalt slam, hunter orb slam, remove crafted mods, multi-mod, plus T1 dot multi, and +2 to socket gems, and you're done. Easy as that. Very quick, very easy bow. And that bow you can use all the way to end game. Once I've seen being used a mirror bow that was more damage than this, but it's not needed. This bow will carry you through the rest of the game. And once you have this, Caustic Arrow deals so much damage, it's absurd. Alright, as for our quiver, we are going to start with any base, profitable feather base, damage over time multiplier, damage with bow skills, max life, and then you can craft attack speed, or you can craft any form of resistance on it. Resistance plus chaos resist is what I went with. And we eventually want to upgrade to a double dot multi damage over time, damage with bow skills bow, and then get some life on it again. And we can get any base, we can get attack speed base, we can get projectile speed base, and then again finish with a fire, with a resistance craft, fire cold, fire chaos. I'm again using chaos resistance, and it's more than enough with the quiver. The way you can get the easy quiver crafted very cheaply is you just get the damage over time multiplier with attack skills fractured on the bow, and then you're going to use Essence of Woe to guarantee increased damage with bow skills until you hit T1 life, and the bow is done. You craft something and the bow is good to go. It's very cheap to get a bow this way, and it's going to last until one of the last upgrades, which is the GG damage over time quiver. Our helmet, we can use any helm with resistance and life early on, and if we want to get a deviewing diadem eventually, it's going to help us on so many levels. It's going to get us enough reservation efficiency so that we can fit determination, grace, and malevolence. It's also going to give us Eldritch Battery, which allows us to not care about mana, so we don't need a mana flask anymore. It gives us enough energy shield to use itself, and we can get a chaos resistance wall on it on top, fixing our chaos resistances while we do that. And then there is Feast of Flesh, and that is another source of life gain. It gives us a flat amount of life, mana, and energy shield, so it sustains our ES to cast our spells, and it gives us life to stay alive in the maps. It's just a really good helmet. Our body armor, we want a Queen of the Forest. Early on, take any Queen of the Forest, but once you get into a higher investment levels of the build, we want either a +2 AoE, a +2 duration, or +2 projectile gem implicit, so that our Toxic Rain gets 2 additional levels and deals more damage, which makes us happy because more damage means enemies die quicker. The rest of the Queen of the Forest, even with those implicit, it is very cheap. You can look for a decent life roll and decent resistances rolls, helping you fix your resistance and putting less pressure on the rare items. And you want to look for about 2k evasion or better, so that you get as much evasion as possible from the body armor. As for our boots, the 3-step assaults are like a 1C unique. You can get a decent evasion roll on it, you get the evasion rating doing onslaught, not doing phasing. I'm sorry, I said that wrong earlier, but it doesn't matter, we have both up all the time anyway. There's the avoidance while phasing, evasion rolling onslaught, that was it. So I did say it right, never mind what I just said. And then it has movement speed, and you can even get pretty cheaply good corruption on it. You can get evasion while moving, you can get percentage life, you can get regeneration while moving, or you could even take more movement speed if you want that, or you could get some spell suppression if needed. There are a lot of good implicits on the boots, and even with those implicits, the boots aren't that expensive. It's just really good boots for the build. It gives us so much evasion rating and a good amount of life and a good amount of movement speed, while also getting the elemental avoidance. Just really good boots. Which gets us to the belt. For most of the league, I used the Biscuit's Leash. A Biscuit's Leash is more than enough. The Rampage makes you faster, deal more damage, gets you explosions, get you corpse removed. It's just such a good belt. You also get some quantity for free, and you get the rarity, making you able to find more uniques. But of course, as pointed in the bottom left corner, a Mage Blood is going to be really good for this build. The Mage Blood is going to make this build a tiny bit tankier, a tiny bit stronger, but it is definitely a really awesome build. It's going to make it more consistent, especially if you are a fan of Sanctuaries and want to run those. A Mage Blood is going to be better than Biscuits, as you flask a permanent uptime, and you don't really have Rampage in the Sanctuary. So Mage Blood is the end goal of this build for the belt slot, but a Biscuits is more than fine for most of the league, and you can easily farm the Mage Blood with this build while using the Biscuits. And I've run pretty much everything I've tested with a Mage Blood. I also tested with a Biscuits. Getting to the gloves. Early on, like their helmet, just any rare with some life and some resistances is good. And once we're going to look to improve this, we want more resistances on the gloves. We want better life rolls, and then we want a bit of additional defenses on it, as for the prefixes there isn't really much we care about, except those increased armor rating and evasion rating, or percentage armor and percentage evasion. And then we can add Eldritch implicits, we can get spell suppression, or whether we inflict expires slower. Both are good for this. And as for the Eater of Worlds, we can get as for the Searing Exarch, we can get increased Chaos Dot multi, which is definitely really good, and we want that very early, as soon as we have access to some Searing Exarch, the Eldritch Ember, and then we apply that to our gloves. It isn't even that uncommon to roll, and then we're good to go on the gloves. We can use those all the way to the end game maximum budget version, which leaves us with only a few slots left. One of that is the Amulet. We want to anoint Corruption on the Amulet, giving increased effect of Wizard, making our Wizard just stronger, making our damage just better. And we want it to be an Amber Amulet, as we want 155 strength, and it's the hardest stat to gain on our build. We don't need as much intelligence, so we don't need strength in hybrid base. And for the rolls, early on we can take Dexterity, Life, and the most important one is +1 to level of Care Skill Gems. And then a level 9 area of effect, or well, a 9% area of effect roll. With that 9%, and then 30% from other sources, be for example 20 quality on Toxic Rain, and 20% from the mastery, or just Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flash, is going to get you a more likely chance to get 4 pots on the enemy. However, in my case, for example, I wasn't able to get this exact craft on the amulet, as I needed to craft life on the amulet, and that's still fine. Just those averaged 3 and most of the time, and a few times hitting 4 pots is still more than enough. And eventually you want to upgrade the amulet to have either all stats or chaos resistance, then a damage over time multiplier roll, a life roll, or a crafted open prefix to craft life, and +1 to chaos skill gems with the same corrupt and preferably the same base. And that amulet is going to be really good for the build, and you can use that for the rest of the league. Leaving us with the rings and the flasks. The rings are pretty much just filler. We want life and resistances, and that's about it. We can fit chaos rest here, we can fit elemental resistances here, and as for the open prefix, we can either craft increased damage, or we could craft minus mana cost if you ever find yourself having any issues with your energy shield once you get the Eldritch battery, or if you don't have that yet and you want still using mana flasks, the mana cost is going to help out a lot. But once you don't have any issues with the cost anymore, you can just craft increased damage, and it's going to be a little bit more damage, which is nice to have. And that brings us to the flasks. The flasks we want to be rolled with getting charges when we are hit, and the suffixes we want evasion, armor, curse effect, and movement speed. However, early on you will need an enduring eternal mana flask, where you can get either poison immunity or any suffix if you're very early into the build. And once you have that Eldritch battery from the Devouring Diadem, you can replace the mana flask with the sulfur flask, getting additional damage. And the sulfur flask I would recommend getting with the movement speed suffix, as that is the most optional suffix out of the 3. Evasion, arm, and curse effect are very good, and we want to keep those, get those as early as possible. And for our 5th flask slot, we want a life flask. We want it to have instant recovery when we are on low life, and we want it to remove bleeding and corrupted blood with it, so we don't need to care about corrupted blood immunity or bleed immunity, and just use a life flask for that. As for any other source of damage, we usually instantly recover it with the Feast of Flesh or the life on kill we get. And that brings us to the final part of this guide, the leveling in Magic Find trees. For that, we're going to head into the passive building. So I have a passive building, it's going to be in the description. It has several leveling trees. So we're going to start just with the core tree, going for ballistics, then Heart of the Oak and Aspect of the Eagle. And then we're going to travel upwards, as the next thing we want to grab is the Hunter's Gambit, getting the blink arrow so we have a bit faster mobility while we level, and then getting wasting, as well as getting Chaos Mastery, Effect of Wizard, and then also using Withering Step to apply Wizard during the campaign. From there, we are about to hit Act 3, or well, end of Act 3, and we want to get some auras in. We're going to need Revenge of the Hunted to get the Evasion Mastery, and Charisma so we can fit Grace and Malevolence. We then are also going to need a bit better mana, so we're going to get Primal Spirit to get the mana, as well as some strength to cover our gems. And we're going to travel further upwards, getting Coordination, and then traveling to Entropy, before getting way even further up for Blood Siphon and getting Growth and Decay to get some life regeneration and damage over time multiplier, and then finishing our travel up with getting the Written in Blood and up Atrophy to get our more chaos damage and skill effect duration. And once we are all the way up, we're going to travel down, going to travel left next. We're going to get reflexes and skill effect duration. From there, we're going to swap out those nodes to the Dex nodes, and we're going to travel down, getting our Tough down for more damage over time, and starting to get to 6 skin, which we're going to take as well. And we're also going to get some quick step, finishing up with Mage Bane to get our spell suppression capped. And from there, basically, it's going to be one final swap. Instead of traveling up, we're going to travel down. We are going to get our hands on Graceful Assault. We're going to get Intuition to keep our spell suppression capped. And we're still going to likely need Primal Spirit at this point, but we're going to get out of that next. We are going to trim the points up here as we travel from the bottom, and we're going to keep the middle at a higher level of investment. If you aren't level 98 or that yet, you can still travel over these 3 nodes instead of traveling over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nodes in the middle. We want to get the cluster, as mentioned, with the damage over with chaos damage nodes, Unholy Grace, Unwavering Evil, and Wicked Pole, and then Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flash. As for the other jewel sockets, we can get any combination of the following. We want to have increased max life, and then damage over time multiplier, chaos damage over time multiplier, area damage or projectile damage. All are going to scale both Caustic Arrow and Toxic Rain. And that's pretty much it for the tree, that is. The skills, of course, also we have our level 1 setup where we're going to use Caustic Arrow for clear, and at the end of end of Act 1 with level 12, we're going to get Toxic Rain for our single target. We can use Dash and Mirror Arrow. We have access to Withering Step and going to get Vitality, which we will level up to level 5. We're then going to improve our Caustic Arrow with Void Manipulation. We're going to get Skitterbot temporary for a bit of extra damage. But in X3, we want to replace Skitterbots with Malevolence Grace. We're going to get access to Despair, and we're going to get efficiency on our Caustic Arrow and on our Toxic Rain for even more damage. And then, once we are in early maps, we want to have either a Caustic Arrow with Void Manipulation, Efficacy, Arrow, Nova, and Vicious Projectiles, and then Swift Affliction once we get our 6th link. Or if your Caustic Arrow isn't doing enough damage yet and you want to push as high tier maps as quick as possible, you can also get your hands on Toxic Rain, Mirage Archer, Void Manipulation, Vicious Projectile, Efficiency, Concentrated Effect, Purple Bull, and Anomalous with exactly 15 quality, and no other sources of increased AoE for Toxic Rain is going to make your Toxic Rain hit more, so you're going to have better single target. And then you can use the Toxic Rain totems to supplement, helping you with the clear. As for the auras, as mentioned earlier, we're going to use Malevolence, Grace, and Despair early. And then we have our Despair Hexbloom. We aren't using Determination yet, we don't have high armor yet, so we're going to use Steel Skin instead. At this point, we also have spot to have cast damage taken, however, we can already use it on left click if we want. Then we have our Blink Arrow, our Withering Stab, and our Frenzy. And then we get to the late game, which I've shown in the video. Or of course, the Magic Find version, where we're going to have not really much differences. In case you need to coloring issues, you can, instead of using a regular mind manipulation for Toxic Rain, use multiple totems. And we are going to use, again, a Steel Skin instead of a Molten Shell, which we want to use in the late game version. The items, I've added a low budget section, which you've seen already in the guide. I've added the late game version, which you already have seen in this guide as well. And then the Mage Blood, so you can check how you want the different flasks. And as you can see, Mage Blood is increasing only our EHP. And I mean, the damage is increasing a tiny bit, but it's mainly just to increase our armor and evasion. And that's basically it. And then, of course, we also have the Magic Find version with Screed's Embrace, Sadima's Touch, Gold Worm, and 2 Ventus Scam builds, which is as seen in my Apothecary hunting strategy. It is just a basic 70 quantity Magic Find build, which is going to use Purity of Elements instead of Determination to keep your resistances kept. And that's pretty much everything there is to this. Hopefully it wasn't too long, I know I've been talking a lot. But anyway, for everybody who is still watching, thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully this build is going to give you as much enjoyment this league as it did for me, or as it still does. I'm going to play it more. And with that being said, have a wonderful day and goodbye.